So the topic of today will be Flutter productivity tips. Let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Roman. I'm a GDG Lawrence organizer. I'm also a GDG Northeast mentor. I'm also a Flutter developer at Philips. And again, I love developing applications in Flutter. I'm really proud of saying and confessing that I brought Flutter at my company. Like, they did not know about Flutter, or they were like doing React or something like that. And then when I brought it into the team, there hasn't been any looking back anymore. So, and I'm actually going to be showing you the application that we developed in just 3 weeks. But again, that's something outside of this, but I'm going to be sharing that information as well. So please thumbs up if you can see the screen, and then you can see the big screen that it says Flutter productivity tips. Thumbs up for you, for those of you. Perfect. Okay, so I think we're good. So let's continue. So please either scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or join at slido.com with the code 302456. You can use your mobile phone to go to slido.com with the code, or you can scan the QR code, and then you're going to join at slido.com. You can drop any questions, and there I'm going to be doing like word clouds and quizzes for you guys. We're going to make this very interactive. So please join at slido.com with the code 302456 so that you can drop me any questions and join the interactive session, okay? So I'm going to leave that again one more time for a second. So we're going to be, we're going to be doing like some of those sessions like that. Again, so join the raffle, because we're going to be raffling, like I said, 3 WeCoRide Android phones at the end of the presentation. So we're going to be 3 lucky winners are going to take these home. So please stay throughout the presentation, because at the end we're going to be raffling those, and also 1 Udemy course. I just dropped the link in the chat where you can also scan this QR code in order to get into the raffle. Let me repeat again, only the hardware, the 3 Android devices will be raffled among the US and Canada residents, but the Udemy course is for everybody else. So stay tuned. At the end of this talk, I'm gonna be raffling those 3 devices, okay? So please stay, and also stay focused, because I'm gonna be throwing questions at you as well. So let's continue. So a little bit about me. I'm from the Dominican Republic. I came to the USA right after high school. I lived in New York for a little bit, and then I moved to Boston. This is where I live right now. I live in Methuen. Actually, it's a small town, 30 minutes from Boston. Yeah, Beantown. Yeah. And again, I've been living here ever since. I work for a medical company called Philips. Maybe some of you have heard of it. And I've introduced, like I said, I've brought Flutter into the company, where we've developed a couple of applications in Flutter already. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm here to share my experiences as a Flutter developer. I have 10 years in the industry. I've ranging from cloud, mobile, web, mostly focused on web, but I've also delved in, again, like native mobile application on using Objective-C, Android using Java. I even remember doing like BlackBerry development using Java. So, but again, my arsenal of technologies range from thick clients, web, and all that, and also cloud, like I mentioned. Please follow me on my YouTube channel, where I also have a couple of videos on Flutter. I have I've created a couple of series where I develop Flutter applications. So please follow me on that YouTube channel. You can grab those links from there. I'll also be sharing some of that information later today. Also, I live stream on Twitch, like just me. So I call it Roman Just Code. So if you go in my channel, you'll see me just code, and you can make fun of me and say, hey, Roman, look, you have a bug in your code. I definitely love interacting with the audience like that. So you can visit me on my portfolio site, or again, humbly, please follow me on Twitter, where I also post regularly about the things that I do, again, things that I do with the community. I'm going to have a build an app workshop very soon. I'm going to be rolling it out on other GDGs. So please stay tuned for that. Please follow me. Check out the YouTube channel. Like and subscribe whenever you get a chance. Okay. Without further ado, if you already, let's say, if you already joined at Slido with the code 302, I'm going to throw a little question at you, kind of like a little bit of an icebreaker. So what is the IDE or code editor for developing mobile apps of your choice? So please join at slido.com with the code 302456, and drop me your choice of what's your favorite IDE, or which is the one that you use, the code editor of your choice for developing mobile apps. In my particular case, yeah, and I like that. I already see some questions being dropped. So yeah, mine is VS Code. I've also done Android Studio. I've used other editors like Sublime, and probably maybe you will see another guy saying like, yeah, I do VI, or I do Nano, or I do Emacs. Yeah, I know a lot of people who do those. So yes, any type of editor of your choice. I'm glad that, yeah, perfect. Exactly. You can drop anything because it doesn't matter like which type of editor you use, as long as it makes you productive and you can release apps in record time, which is what Flutter facilitates. So I'm glad to hear and to see some of the feedback from people. So I truly appreciate it. Yeah, IntelliJ is a pretty good option as well. Vim, of course, for those like hard code developers that actually don't like all the noise of the of UIs in front of you, and you want to do that. Perfect. Awesome. I really appreciate the interaction again and the feedback. So please keep dropping, keep checking the polls, and keep dropping your options in here. Definitely like that. Awesome. So let's continue. I'm going to go to the next slide. So again, what's Flutter? Again, I know that some people, of course, have already heard Flutter. Otherwise, then you may not be here. But some of you who maybe have just like stumbled upon this talk and you're right here, you maybe were under a rock, for a little bit, and you didn't know what Flutter was. I'm going to tell you what Flutter is. Flutter is Google's proprietary UI toolkit for developing mobile applications with one single code base. At the beginning, they focused on mobile, but now with one single code base, you're going to be able to target desktop, web, embedded, native applications, such a range of platforms with one single code base. I can tell you personally that I come from the time where I had actually 3 IDEs sitting in front of me. I used to have Android Studio, Visual Studio, and then for example, like Android Studio, and then I would be developing all those in Xcode, for example, like on the other hand, and I would be doing Objective-C, Java, C#, and then I would be developing 3 applications at the same time. So again, that was not fun, but at least it allowed me to develop 3 applications and release them. But for being like a one-man show, that was a little bit weird. Anyway, so this talk is about 10 useful tips for Flutter productivity and learning in 2021. So some of you may have already heard of this, of the things that I'm going to be saying, but at the end of this talk, you're going to take something away. If it's something that you've already heard, you're going to reinforce it. But if it's something that is going to be new to you, you immediately want to implement it. So I'm going to proceed with giving you the things that have worked for me, that I hope that work for you. 10 useful tips for Flutter productivity and learning this year. The first one, hot reload. Some of you have already heard of hot reload. So what is hot reload? Hot reload is the capability that Flutter gives you to iterate in your code and be able to see the changes in real time as you develop. I'm going to show you, for example, one example. Here, this is an application that I've been developing. Is an application that I use. It's kind of like a produce application. Like a groceries and produce application, and then I can show you real quick. You can go inside of the application. I'm actually even doing it live also. So I'm connected to my physical device, and then I'm projecting in my screen. Let's say if I want to make a change in my application, instead of bringing down the application, closing it, and then starting just because I did a small change, hot reload allows me to make changes in real time. For example, I'm going to go back to one screen. And then let's say the word bienvenido, that means like welcome. I'm going to change that color. Let's say I want to change the color of that page. So I go to that particular page while my application is running, and then I say, okay, so let me see where that label is. So I'm going to change the color. Right here is a text widget, and then I'm going to change the color from white to red. So if I just change it like the color right away and just save and hit R, So and then you see the changes in real time. You see that that you can direct to your attention to the emulator, where you see that the word says now is in red instead of white. So hot reload has three aspects. So if you hit R, that is the hot reload. If you do Shift R, that is full reload, because it actually reloads your whole application and removes the state from memory. Or you do a full restart, which is actually killing the application and then restarting the application from scratch. It would actually stop the application and bringing it back up. But those are the three aspects of hot reload that will make you productive. Like, let's say I want to change the text right here and say GDG Montreal. I hit save, and then I just do R in the console. You see here that the label now changes to GDG Montreal, right in real time, and then you see those changes right away. So a suggestion to you: use hot reload to your advantage, so that makes you productive. Again, if that's something that you continue using, please continue using that. But if that's something that maybe you hadn't heard or you hadn't leveraged, that's something that you should definitely tap into for productivity. So that was hot reload. Let's continue. The next one is use packages. You saw the previous talk from Grooven, like where he said, yeah, I have like packages that people use. Instead of you like reinventing the wheel, you can use packages that are available already, like in pub.dev, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Me, yes, if I like something that I want to learn, let's say I want to learn Flutter, I like to create the things myself, because if you, for example, if you saw here in this application, and then I just undo on everything in here, and then I just do reload, I did a bunch of things myself. But I'd rather, for example, consume packages like the one from Grooven, like the one from like Google. Like Google has a bunch of packages that you can do, that you can use to make you more productive, to release your applications much quicker. Please use the packages available to you in pub.dev that the community has available for you, and then you can reuse it and make yourself more productive. So if you see like all those widgets right there, like I've developed those myself, because one, I wanted to become more proficient in creating widgets and creating libraries. But for example, here, like if you go back, let's say to the home screen, and then you do like the onboarding piece, like this widget, I created it myself using some of the core components. But let's say if I let's say go back, and then I want to go, I want to do a login. So I log in using, let's say, the Firebase package for authentication. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I actually just have to go to the web and find, for example, here in Flutter, in pub.dev, I can just go to, let's say, Cloud Firestore, or I can just do like Google sign in. And here you can download a lot of packages that you can use in your applications to become really proficient. And also actually to save time, but also allows you to release your applications much quicker out there, in the market. So please use packages as much as you can. Yes, if you're in the learning process and you want to learn something, you can rebuild. You can, it allows you to create like some packages yourself if you want to do. But if you're more into, let me create this application much quicker, you can adopt and use the packages that are already out there. So tip number 2 is using packages as much as you can to be productive and to release applications much quicker. Definitely, yes. Randall, that's correct. You can definitely, by saving, you can also configure, that was the tip on the hot reload. Thank you for that tip. You can also configure your IDE so that you can do hot reload on save. That's awesome. So let's continue. That was tip number 2, using packages. Okay, so now it's time for another short quiz. So join the quiz at slido.com with the code 302456. Let's do another quick quiz. Let's see how you guys are. Yeah, thank you. So a lot of people in there. So now, if you let's say you're familiar with Flutter, what type of programming model approach does Flutter follow? Maybe some of you have heard out there or from the documentation that there is a declarative approach and an imperative approach. Like for programming, let's say developing mobile applications, you may have heard declarative and imperative. What kind of programming approach does Flutter follow? If those of you, let's say, if you don't know, try to take a guess, because again, we're here to learn. We're here to share our experiences. Join at slido.com with the code 302456 and tell me, what kind of programming approach does Flutter follow? Is it the declarative or imperative? So I'm going to give you, a minute or two so that you can provide your answer. So we see a couple of people already dropping their answers. Again, it all has to do with how, let's say, it's not like a preference. It's actually, for example, like some languages do have those type of approaches because of the way that the framework works. So let's say in Flutter, there's one approach. You're going to know right after this. Definitely. Okay. Perfect. So yeah. So what kind of Google approach does Flutter follow? Okay. So I think I've given enough time. So what is the approach? Let's take a look. A lot of people said the declarative approach. No one said imperative. And the right answer is declarative approach. So the declarative approach that Flutter refers to is the fact that, let's say you provide, that widgets are immutable. And when you feed that the widget, which is kind of like the configuration of your application, you actually provide it in a declarative approach. You tell it exactly what you want the state of your application to be every time the widget rebuilds. So the declarative approach is kind of like that. You provide it in a declarative way by building widgets. Every time now you want to change the state, you rebuild the widget, and then the Flutter just rebuilds it for you. That's why they call that the widgets in Flutter are immutable. And that is the approach that Flutter follows. So thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you very much for contributing and participating in this small quiz. So let's continue. Tip number 3, using icon fonts. If I show you again the application, my application, you see like a bunch of icons in there that I've been using. Those icons are actually not anywhere. Like I create those myself, but you can leverage a lot of the icons available in the material icon. For example, here, if you go to the material icons, Flutter allows you to tap into those things. Because let's say with one single icon font, you can satisfy all your icon needs. You don't have to like download a bunch of PNGs or SVGs. With one single file, you can satisfy all your icon needs. And the good thing about it is that an icon font being providing a very small memory footprint and a small file size footprint allows you to make your applications a lot much lighter, much leaner, and then you can actually have icons very sharp with vector images, and then it makes your application a lot more, again, more slick and better looking. For example, here I've in a lot of aspects I've actually leveraged a lot of the icons from the material icons. And the way that you can use material icons in your application is here, like here in the pubspec.yaml of your application, you can actually see that I'm using either the Cupertino icons or the, some of the default icons that the application provides. But let's say you want to add your own icons, you create like your own icon font. For example, here, this is I don't know if you've known about this, for example, like Fantastic. Fantastic allows you to create your own icon font by importing a bunch of SVGs, and then you can create like your own icons. Then you generate like a file out of that, and then you can come in here and then import it as a custom icon. Then once you bring it as part of your assets, like a TTF, let's say an icon, like an icon font, you can use it in your application by, again, like, import it into your assets. And then, for example, in the main.dart, you can load it as part of your theme. Like here, I'm saying, okay, so the font, let's say the theme is one particular font, or you can create like your own components that use like icons. For example, here, I created like a little widget, and I called it like icon font. And then that one actually leverages the font family, which is the font that I created. And then I created my own fonts. If I can show you like more icons out there, see like all the little icons in the application are using that. So you either create your own icon fonts, import it in your applications, and use fantastic.me. Sorry, yeah. If you go to fantastic.me, that allows you to create like your own icon fonts. You import it in your application, and instead of you having dozens of SVGs or like SVGs or PNGs, you use one single icon font, which you can use it throughout your application, and you can even scale it or shrink it, and you will still have sharp images. So tip number 3, using icon fonts. Let's proceed. Tip number 4, use snippets and plugins. Randall, you were mentioning it earlier. Like it makes you productive by you using like snippets and plugins in your application because you don't have to type that much. And then that expedites the time that you need to do to type the same boilerplate stuff in your application. For example, if we, well, we already talked about the icon fonts. We're doing the snippets and plugins. Now I'm going to show you, for example, how to do that in your application. Using snippets is very cool. So for example, if I decide to create one, let's say, for example, you create one file and I'm going to call it sample.dart. Let's say I'm going to create my application. Instead of you creating your widget and typing it like this, let's say, oh, sample, let's say extends stateless widget. See, you have to like type all of this. And then you make some mistakes, and then it's error prone when you do it like this. You can actually install your own, let's say, Flutter plugins that are already out there available for the community, and you can come over here and you can find those extensions and those plugins. So you can do like Flutter plugin, and you're going to get like a bunch of those things that allows you to do that. For example, here, if I say stateless W, this is one of the plugins that I have. And when you do that, you see it already creates the class for me. And then all I have to do is just finalize. So it creates all the initial boilerplate code that allows you to, create your widgets. And then you don't have to type all of this. It makes it less error prone, and it makes you more productive at the same time. If let's say you already have, let's say, something like this, like sample extends stateless widget. And then let's say you're like this, okay, so now even you can use the ones that come out of the box from Flutter that you can even right click and say like, you can import the library, or you can say create one missing override, which is the build method, and so on. So you can use the plugins and the snippets that are available to you, and then that makes you more productive. Yes, VS Code has a very cool, very nice one. So I would definitely take Randall's suggestion. Thank you, Randall, for the support there in the chats. And it makes you very productive. So please use this snippets and plugins available, so it makes you more productive. So thank you for that. So let's continue. So that was tip number 4, using snippets and plugins. Number 5, create models for prototyping. I usually do this because I hate hard coding in my application, but I like to create, let's say when I'm prototyping my application, I usually create models initially. Like I create Dart models that allow me to create my, let's say iterate through lists or something like that. And I'm creating like components like that. I like to create my model. So remember that Flutter is just the framework. You need Dart because Dart is the language in which Flutter was created. So Dart allows you to create, because it's a strongly typed language, it allows you to create models that you can use. Let's say, for example, if I say class employee, you see, like you can create like a strongly typed, because it's an object-oriented language, it allows you to create that. So instead of you, let's say, creating a whole structure here where you have to say like, let's say return container, and then here in your container, you say, okay, so I'm going to create a child, which is a column, right? And then let's say you create your column. Right here, then you have to say children. And then instead of you like having to copy paste a bunch of things, let's say I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to create a text. And then I say, hello world 1, and so on. Like instead of you having to do like, okay, I want to create something like this. Okay, so you see, you can do it. Like, let's say if you wanna do it the hard way. But for example, here I want to create like a list of employees. You can start creating, let's say, even the models that you know your application is going to consume in the future, or let's say what you know that your services are going to consume. So you create models out of that. Here you can say like string name, string, last name, stuff like that. So you create like your models. Sorry about that. So you can create like your models first, and let's say that your application is going to be consuming. So I'm using like null safety right now. So let's say if you do something like that, you create, let's say, a constructor for your model, and then here that you have to pass like a name, and you have to pass like a last name, something like this, right? And then now instead of you saying, okay, I'm not gonna hard code all my employees because I'm going to be creating a column with lists and stuff like that. So instead of doing that, you can actually then create, for example, here, you can create like a list of employee models, right? And then you can say like employee list, something like that. So instead of you hard coding stuff like that, now you can say, okay, so now let me either populate, let's say a list. Let's say you have like a loop in here, for example. You do like see, that's also the, you could do like, let me do like a list of 10 employees, for example. And then you do something like this, and then here you do like emp.add. You can add a new employee object every time, and then you pass, my name will be, first name with let's say, and then you do like last name, I'm sorry, last name, and then you do like first name in there. Sorry, I flipped the values. And then you do like last name. So you see, you're bringing it closer to, let's say, what your application is going to consume in the future. And then, for example, stuff like that. Now you can use, like, instead of copy pasting your content in there, then you can use, for example, like list.generate, or you can just use like emp.map, and then you map each one of the employees, let's say, in your list, for example, like this, and then you could create like a text widget, you see? So stuff like that. So at least you're bringing your application much closer to let's say what it will be at the end, where you're like mapping like a bunch of objects that you're going to be consuming. And then you could do, for example, like a to list on the, let's say, on the column, and then you feed it like that. So instead of you hard coding stuff in here, instead of you hard coding like your content in your application, it's good that you can use let's say a way for you to iterate your prototype in your application, bringing it much closer to what it will be at the end, and you can create models like this instead of like hard coding stuff. So that was another tip that I like to use a lot. And then at that same time, let's say when your service is already created, you're like one step ahead, because now your application, instead of having like a bunch of hard-coded stuff, at least you know that your widgets consume models and they build appropriate using like lists. Then at the end, all you have to do is just maybe replace like the hard-coded, let's say, the mocked data with real data. But your application at least has been fed with models that you know that are going to be using. Awesome. So let's continue. Let's create a model for prototyping. Now, again, let's continue making it more interactive. Let's do another quick quiz. Please join at slido.com with the code 302456 for the next quiz. So for those of you out there, which is the most important method in a Flutter widget? Is it the init state method? Is it the build method, or the constructor? So join at slido.com with the code 302456, and then tell me which is the most important method in a Flutter widget. Is it the init state method, the build method, or the constructor? Not the one that first executes. Which is the most important method in a Flutter widget, as far as like what makes it tick, what makes it re-render. So what is the most important method in a Flutter widget? Is it the init state? Is it the build method? Or is the constructor in that Flutter class, in the widget class? So I'll give you a few seconds for you to take a look at that. And please join us slido.com with the code 302456, and then just give me what you think it is. Awesome, and definitely I appreciate everybody being engaged and dropping your questions and following the live quizzes. So now I'm gonna proceed, and I'm gonna see. Okay, so a lot of people say the build method. No one answer on the other ones, and the correct answer is exactly that: the build method. The build method is exactly the method that actually gets called every time by the Flutter framework. Whenever you use like stateful widgets, like it gets rebuilt every time you change the state. The build method gets executed, and then it rebuilds your widget. For stateless widgets, it builds your widget once, and then that's it. Every time you rebuild a method, that's a new state. So that's exactly what the build method is. It's the most important method in a Flutter widget. Thank you everyone for participating. How about this one? What is the first method that executes when the Flutter app starts up? Now, it's a little tricky. Which is the first method that executes when the Flutter app starts up? The very first method. Don't get confused, but these are three options. It's either the main method, the run app method, or the build method. Which one of those three methods is the first method that executes when a Flutter app starts up? I'll give you a few seconds for that. So either one of those three methods is the first method that executes. When a Flutter app, not a widget, the whole app, even though of course the whole application is a widget on its own. So which is the first method that executes when a Flutter app starts up? Is it the main, run app, or the build method? So I'll give you a few more seconds just to do it so that we can proceed. Awesome. So now let's see what people have answered. People say the main method. Yes, yeah, some people could argue, but yes, it's either the main method or the run app. I think there's people saying the main method, and the correct answer is the main method. Correct, is the main method. Why? Here, when you have, let's say, your main.dart, the first method is the main method. The run app method is after the main. So yeah, people can debate it, but the first method execute when the whole application starts is the main method. So thank you everyone for posting your answers. That's exactly the correct answer. Thank you so much. Tip number 6. I'm gonna have to continue on because I think we're right at the mark. So tip number 6. This is kind of like more of a suggestion or like a recommendation for you. Tip number 6. One widget does one thing and one thing only. I always encourage people saying that the build method, your build methods in a widget should not be a humongous build method. You should break up your widgets by functionality and by how they render. For example, I'm going to show you this application that I built, again, like I said, a couple of weeks ago. For example, I'm going to show you this application is already available. It's already available in the App Store and the Google Play. This is a shuttle application that people use to take the shuttle from Andover to Cambridge. And then when you see this application, for example, if I tap on one of the screens, each one of these things is a separate widget, starting from the item in here, like the row item. For example, when I flip on the weekly views of the departures, even each one of those cells is a separate widget. Why? Because each component handles its own life cycle, handles the way that it renders, as opposed to creating a humongous build method that even if the smallest change gets triggered, the whole page then gets rendered, which is inefficient. So make sure that only one widget does one thing and one thing only. That way you make your application a lot more efficient, much quicker, it performs much better. And then you can just do like, you can tap like this. You can click and you see that I'm not re-rendering the whole page. I'm only re-rendering that little column, and then even one single widget re-renders itself as well. For example, here, this top widget is a separate widget. Each one of these little bullets, or each one of these pills is a separate widget. Each one of these is a widget. The canceling reservation or doing a reservation is a separate widget. I don't have to rebuild the whole application with the smallest change. So that's why you need to optimize your application to break it up into smaller pieces to make it more not only robust, but very decoupled at the same time. Yes, like components can communicate with one another via services, maybe using like a provider or like Riverpod or something like that. But try to make your widgets smaller in size because you want to concentrate it in that build method. Remember, we were talking about that earlier. The build method is the most important method in the widget. So let's continue. The real key of, again, Flutter, and to actually learn and get the part about like the build method and how widget works, is that everything in Flutter is a widget. Everything in Flutter is a widget, with some exceptions, but yes. Everything in Flutter is a widget. Of course, I can't hear you, but I will say, repeat, everything in Flutter is a widget. And there's a little asterisk in there because not really everything is a widget. I would say like 90% of the things in Flutter are widgets. But if you put that mindset that everything in Flutter is a widget, you can build your applications a lot more robust. And you can make your applications, again, very decoupled. They function very well. They render fast. So you actually want to make that happen. So if you keep that in mind, again, for those for the new people, everything in Flutter is a widget. If you keep that mindset, you're gonna get really far. Of course, some of you already know even how Flutter builds the UIs. It uses three trees. The widget tree, remember, is an immutable tree that every time you pass it to the framework, it rebuilds your widget. And then the next change is a completely new widget. The element tree is actually the glue between whatever you're passing as a configuration, which is the widget tree, and then whatever you see on the screen, which is the render tree. And then he does it very efficiently. Only when he sees changes in the widget tree, then the render tree only grabs the pieces that are updated, and then it re-renders only those pieces. It doesn't destroy the objects on the render tree unless the widget doesn't have that piece in there anymore. So a great way to also have that Flutter mindset is to understand how the Flutter builds the UIs using the widget tree, element tree, and the render tree. The element tree is nothing more than the instantiation of the widget tree, because again, remember, the widget tree is kind of like the configuration aspect. Render tree is what you see. It handles the layout, the painting, sizing of the widgets and whatnot. So please keep that in mind whenever you're, again, learning Flutter, because this is going to take you really far when you grasp that concept at the beginning. Tip number 7, test on physical devices. I can't stress it enough. I have devices up the wazoo here. So, and I'm going to be, again, raffling a couple of like low-end devices, but test on physical devices. Your users are not going to be using your application on an emulator. They can use it, for example, on the web. Yes, you can test it on a let's say on your desktop. But whenever you're deploying applications, like for users out there in the wild, test it on physical devices. Do not put as an excuse that you can't buy a Samsung Galaxy, $1,000 device. You don't need $1,000 device. You can use one of these devices, the ones that I'm going to be raffling, which is an amazing device. So you can use one of these devices that I'm going to be raffling as your developer device, and you don't have to break the bank. So test on physical devices because your users, before you put your applications out there, so you can definitely do that. Test on physical devices. Another quiz. I know you're liking the quizzes, so let's give you another quiz. Join at slido.com with the code 302456 to get on the next live quiz. So I want to see what people answer in this particular one. I'm going to show you the question. Everything in Flutter is a widget. That's the next question. What do you think? Is everything in Flutter a widget? Yes or no? Join at slido.com with the code 302456 and give me your answer. What do you think? Let's see if you're actually grasping all the things that we've been discussing. Randall, again, thank you very much. Shout out to you for assisting in the chat. Everything in Flutter is a widget, true or false? What do you guys think? So I'm going to give you, again, one more minute so that we can proceed to the next one. Everything in Flutter is a widget, true or false? So I think I see already a few people already answering. So let's proceed. People are saying true. People are saying false. Again, I know a lot of people are going to debate this one, but true. I'm saying everything in Flutter is a widget. I just put the asterisk earlier. It's just you put the mindset in your brain saying everything in Flutter is a widget, but you keep that mantra. You say everything in Flutter is a widget. But you say not everything, but you would say everything in Flutter is a widget. Like pretty much everything. Maybe that's how I should have done. A stream, you can consider the share preferences as a widget. Oh yeah, you can say the provider is a widget, but it's maybe a widget that doesn't render anything on the screen, but it facilitates the rendering. It facilitates, for example, communication between widgets. People usually let's say lean towards saying that a widget is something that actually you see a tangible asset, but it is a widget. That's why you say it's not a widget, but it's a widget. But a widget is only what gets painted on the screen. But even in the in the documentation, they say, yeah, like everything is a widget, but there are no widgets. Like for example, models. Yes, thank you, Randall. Like you have like a model. That's not a widget. So that's why not everything is a widget. But if you say everything in Flutter is a widget, while you're learning, you learn how to create structures and stuff like that. Awesome. The next one. Flutter's performance is based on creating 3 trees. Which one is not one of those trees? Let me know. Widget tree, component tree, render object tree, or the element tree? Which one of those three is not? So think about it. Which one is not one of the 3 trees that the Flutter framework based itself on in order to render the widgets on the screen? Which one is not? So join at slido.com with the code 302456 and then tell me what your answer is. Flutter's performance is based on three trees. Which one is not that tree? Let's see what you guys have answered. People say component tree. People say render object tree, and the actual one that is not is the component tree. So there's no such thing as a component tree. There's a widget tree, a render object tree, and an element tree. Component, again, that's a term, again, coined by like the React people. So any React people in the house, my respects. But yeah, I'd rather stay in Flutter. So thank you very much. Okay, awesome. Let's continue. So we're almost about time. I'm going to flip through these ones. So tip number 8 is using the debugger. Like for you, those of you who are even learning, and even those of you who are seasoned developers, you will find the debugger very, very, very helpful. For example, like in my application, I can even trigger the, for example, like in the application that I'm building right now, that I'm working on right now, I can put like breakpoints in here, and then you will see me, for example, like interacting with the application. So I'm going to be trying that in a minute. Let me show you. For example, here, if I just do Flutter run, for example, if I start the application, I can show you real quick. All you have to do, of course, for those of you who are new or those of you who already know, you know how it is. So you actually put breakpoints in your application. For example, I'm using Visual Studio Code, and you can just drop breakpoints in your code, and then you can tap into it while you're running your application. Right now, like, it's taking a little bit for me, but again, the debugger is something that you should continue using. Also, the Dart developer tools that you can launch on your browser, which allow you to tap into the whole hierarchy, and you can even see like the objects, how they get rendered. That is a very useful tool. So using the debugger while you're developing makes you very productive and decreases the amount of errors that you can have in your application. For example, here, I'm going to be showing you, for example, like the application. There it is. Actually, I have to do this. I'm streaming like live in here as well, and then you would see like the application. And then if you place like breakpoints, all you have to click is here, like run and debug, and then you can run it in debug mode. So debugging your application is awesome. I think we're right about time, but I'm gonna just show you the next other tips, and then we can go for a few questions, and then we're gonna do the raffle. Tip number 9, again, is more of a suggestion. Start simple and small. So whenever you're building something, make sure that you don't try to create like a huge application. You want to start small, learn how to create like building widgets and creating small widgets. That's how you learn. You create like small applications, and you can put it out there for your users so you can get feedback from your users. So start simple and small is something that I always recommend, and not try to cover too much, because otherwise, by the time you're done with your application, there's another version of Flutter or something, or you might be updated. But at least keep iterating when you're building your application. Start simple and small. And the last but not least, tip number 10, build, build, build. I can't tell you enough. I can't stress this enough. You build widgets. That's how you learn how to create structures. Like me, like in this application right here, like I try to create like I create a bunch of widgets. I make sure that my application is, like I distribute my application accordingly. I have widgets. I have like pages, each one of those things. And then I create a bunch of applications, even though they may not see the light of day, but I like to create and build UIs, because that makes me more proficient in the art of building UIs and building applications. You own every pixel on the screen, so take advantage of that, because Flutter gives you that flexibility. You own every pixel on the screen, so you can have that flexibility to create any type of UIs that you want. You can, again, how do you get started? Like I said, you either you can have like a physical device, or you can even use like Dartpad. And there's a bunch of Flutter SDKs out there that you can use. So I'm gonna be dropping a couple of links and even sharing my my application. I'm not gonna show in Dartpad because I already showed Visual Studio Code, but Dartpad is another option that you can use for like as a web-based way for you can learn Flutter and Dart. There's no excuse like I don't have a machine, or I only have a Mac, or I only have a Windows. You can go in a browser and learn how to develop Flutter. Just go to Dartpad and you can learn. If you're starting now, focus on layout and widget building. prioritize on building UIs, because all the other stuff is going to come, in the process. You're going to learn, of course, like state management. You're going to learn how to create like complex applications, architecting it. But if you're starting right now, focus on the layout. That's like the simplest thing that you can start learning. Again, like I said, getting proficient on building widgets, prioritizing on building. You're gonna have a lot of joy, those of you who are starting. So focus. My suggestion to you: focus on layout building, and you're gonna learn really fast. Then the other stuff, it's gonna come. Don't worry. For example, like a UI like this, you might get intimidated and you say, no, only people like Google or Apple can build stuff like that. No, if you put like this kind of mindset, like everything is a widget, and then that you can build layouts by using common patterns like columns, rows, containers, and then you build your application like that, and you visualize it like this, you can tackle individual pieces, and then you can build your applications very quick. So I strongly suggest you tackle it head on, learn to build UIs, and then you get more proficient and more familiarized. So definitely strongly suggest that. Make your app stand out from the rest. Like I showed you, I usually use like the material library, but I try to make my applications very unique. So leverage the fact that Flutter gives you that flexibility, and you make your application stand out from the rest. How? Challenging yourself, creating like crazy UIs, like learning, again, like I said, like the composition of widgets, widget composition. So you can create a stuff that you don't get out of the box from, let's say, the material UI or the Cupertino icons. You can create your own icons. You can create your own UIs. And those are the little things that actually give you an app like an edge over others. Are, for example, like aesthetics, iconography, like I mentioned earlier, imagery, like the icons and cool images that you can use. Color, you don't have to be a designer to actually apply some of these things. You can leverage again sites like Dribble, Pinterest or whatever. You can download like one of those templates that they have, and you can build your UIs off of that, like the one I mentioned earlier. And you don't have to be a designer or a UX expert to apply aesthetics, iconography, or cool imagery and minimalism to your application. That will make your application stand out from the rest. So now with this, this is the last quiz before we wrap up. I'm just going to say, again, I definitely appreciate everybody joining. Please, let's participate in this last quiz. Join at slido.com with the code 302456. And then because I think we're a little bit over time, but again, I know we've been having a lot of fun and all of you guys are doing this. So what's better for performance? Multiple smaller widgets or a single large widget? Please join at slido.com with the code 302456 and tell me what's better for performance, multiple smaller widgets or a single large widget. So you can just drop your question in there. Tell me what you think it is, a single large widget or multiple small widgets. What's better for performance? Yeah, thank you, Prab. Awesome, great. So yeah, but don't leave, because you might lose your chance on getting one on the phone. So stay tuned. People say smaller widgets. People are not saying large widgets. That's exactly correct. I've already mentioned it. Multiple small widgets is what makes your application more performant. You concentrate the build, your widget building inside of that build method when you make smaller widgets like that. The last one, this is a trick one. The little debug sash, like some of you may have already seen it. The little debug sash that shows when you're debugging your application, like when you start the application. What is it called? What do you guys think? I think it's a mouthful. So what do you think about this this application? What is it called? The property that you use to disable that little sash. Is it called debug mode show check banner? I don't know who came up with that property. Hide debug sash banner or debug show check mode banner. So what do you think? Which one of these three is the little property that you just toggle it off? The one that says like debug mode. So which one you think it is? So I'll just give you 1 second for you guys to do that, because I know we're a little bit over time. But again, I'm loving that you guys are participating. Let's see which one it is. Is debug show check mode banner. So those of you who answer that, yes, it's a mouthful. I don't know who came up with that property, but that's how you take off that little debug sash. So again, I appreciate. Oh, I will say we even have another one. So I think this is the last one. I promise. How does Flutter render widgets on the screen? I have this one in there. By tapping into the underlying widgets for each individual platform, by painting widgets on the screen using the Skia engine, or you think it's magic, like you don't know how is it that it gets rendered. So which one you think it is? Tapping on the underlying widgets, painting widgets on the screen, or what do you think is magic? Like it's just magic the way that Flutter renders widgets. So I'll just give you one more second because I know we're a little bit over time. And again, thank you very much, everybody who didn't even take the break and stood throughout this session. Let's see what it is. People are saying painting widgets on the screen. That's exactly what it is. And of course, don't. Yeah, I know a lot of people did this, but there's no there's no leaderboard. Sorry about that. But these are some of the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. Please follow me on my YouTube channel. Every week I'm been dropping like cool videos on Flutter. That's the Roman Just Codes on YouTube. So that's my Flutter series. Also, there's a bunch of other great resources that I'm going to be dropping here, and I'm going to be staying around. Please come up to me and ask me anything during this session. Thank you so much, guys.